It's Juneteenth.
Hey, 19.
Who does that?
Steely Dan.
Oh, it's Steely Dan.
Steely Dan.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
We'll
a
have
song that made me a
spandex
fan
jackets.
at the... Actually, no, it was... never mind. Go ahead.
Hey 19 was the thing, like the song about the old geezer who's hanging out at a frat party,
30-ish.
dancing with the 30-ish.
Like you said,
Old geezer. No, we
You
can't
could have
dance
said-
together. We can't.
You could have
talk
said
at
the
all.
spandex jacket song was the one that made
oh,
you.
that's great. That's a great song.
Except that was
How'd
Donald
you like?
Fagen. That was solo, not Steely
Oh,
Dan.
really?
Yeah.
In fact, that song's called IGY, and I did. I wrote a segment on IGY yesterday, which I'll record today, in a secret, top secret project that I can't really talk about just yet. But IGY was the International Geophysical Year.
That's
Yeah, but
what
it actually
means?
lasted like 18 months, which
It's
means they
18
don't even know
months.
how long a year is, those dummies.
Started in the summer of 1957, and 63 countries from around the world, or 67, all got together and they cooperated on things like Antarctic research and oceanography, plate tectonics, aurora studies.
Well, the geophysicists, in their defense, are not anchored to some limited view of time as being how long it takes the sun to orbit or the Earth to orbit around the sun. Which is it? Does the sun
power
orbit around the Earth? I can't remember.
All
The
depends
Earth
on
is
your
flat,
point of view.
and the Earth is flat, and the sun is on the inside of a disk that rises and sets as it retains its motion around the Earth.
Turtles all the way down.
Good morning, good afternoon, and in case I don't see you again.
Is this going out to the public?
We do live in the
Wow,
Truman
we're
Show. No, we
just
haven't
idiots.
started yet. This is not a show, nor is it about to become one.
It's going out to the public. I can sense it.
You know, I get the sense that whoever edits these only gets the video feed, not the audio feed, because he never pays any attention to the things that we tell him not to include in the show. He's just
Don't
like,
pay any attention to that. Don't pay any attention to Mark.
Yes.
so, I got a crick in my neck. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Backstage pre-production meeting for our right angle episodes this week, and we are delayed as we posted at the Bill Whitter. I was already anticipating saying the word member in conjunction with Whittle, and it came out Whitter.
Free worry.
So the members only blog at billwhittle.com, we posted something to indicate that we were pushing everything back a day this week. So our members are already apprised of this fact, and we thank you for your patience. Bill was in an undisclosed location doing unspeakable things. And is it
Yay.
unspeakable?
4 hours of unspeakable things. Yeah, it's going to be
Impressive.
grand, and I should be able to tell people about it sometime during this week, I would think.
Nice.
Now, did you ever get a chance? I know you briefly texted me yesterday that you were awaiting an opportunity to speak publicly. Did you ever get a chance to do that yesterday?
I did not get a chance to talk about it. I did. Oh, yes, yes. My public speaking event was in the morning. Yes, and then on fleeted foot, I ran myself down to the studio in Santa Monica. I'm sorry, in Sherman Oaks, and spent four or 5 hours in there, and got another 5 hours in there today. I think this is all lovely tease because it's not talking about where I was or what I was talking about, but nevertheless, it is. It's certainly looking like, just visually anyway, the best thing we've done since the virtual presidency back in 2013.
I know what this is, and I'm dying to say something, but I can't. I'm just going to have to wait for the finished product
Wait a
and then
minute.
just drool over it.
You know what it is?
You
Stephen?
know what it is too, shush.
I have to tell you, and again, I know this is just being a dreadful tease, but we all use virtual sets back at PJTV, and I walked into this place with a practical set, and I mean, it just knocked the wind out of me. It was just like, oh God, oh my God.
So there are
Wait to
things.
see the finished stuff.
I'm not sure I understand this. There are things that you can. There are three-dimensional objects.
Physical in form.
Apparently, yep,
You can touch
apparently.
them. Like it's
And
not.
you can throw the focus out of back. You can throw the background out of focus and put a little depth of field action in there. It's absolutely amazing, darling.
Wow. So anyway, all of that is a very long explanation. See, doesn't it sound Like, hasn't your anger subsided a little bit for the fact that everything got delayed this week because you now have the perception that Bill was doing something very, very important, and now you feel like a bad person for being upset at us that we delayed the shows?
Yes, well, you should.
I feel like a bad person almost all the time.
There I was, the voice of my generation, making a historical document that will live as long as mankind records words and pictures onto digital devices, and this is the thanks I get.
So
yes, thank you.
And we've already put, by the way, that project's already been inserted into the time capsule. It will not be open for another 300 years. So you're never actually going to find out what it is until 300 years from now.
That's a dirty
I
lie.
should, as long as I still have the hair, I'll be fine with that.
Okay, so here's the deal. We're planning some episodes. And by the way, we've had a great, substantial surge of new members who have come into the family.
Incredible.
Within the past couple of days.
It's the new site. It's so good.
Well, I think there's a combination of things. First of all, our members who are very active in their recruiting of their friends and relatives. And then obviously the quality of our programming, which gets exponentially better practically with each passing minute.
Yes, but I mean, you got to consider where it's coming from. I mean, it's kind of like saying the Chinese tripled their wealth. They were living in stone huts, and
yeah.
But anyway, yes.
I don't think we need to talk about baselines as we.
Shut up, Bill.
So anyway, but there was also the factor of a lot of people saw what happened to our old buddy Steven Crowder on YouTube, what happened to our new buddy and lasting buddy Bill Whittle, as well as Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern and several other people who
the rest of us at the Nazi factory.
Yeah, at the New York Times, he just used the German word for New York Times. But when people saw what the mainstream media can do, what the social media leaders can do to conservative voices, I think they realized, hey, wait a minute, this stuff really doesn't continue and exist and persist without our direct connection with it, without our directly funding it. If we leave conservative voices, the sustenance of them in the hands of the people who hate us the most, what are the odds of them putting up with that much longer? So I think that's how
what could go wrong?
That's right. So that said, because this week I believe it is my turn to do 2 episodes, one of which is for the general public, as is the other. But the other is what we used to refer to as a members only episode. But the members have kind of besieged us with.
Yeah. Oh, how long ago? Oh, okay. Something like that.
I got
okay.
20.
Okay, so I'm rolling again. I've got a new roll. Anyway, so.
Hey, thanks very much for lowering the production standards of this office.
In all honesty, I didn't think that was possible, so I'm sorry. I did.
We've now reached the subfloor.
So,
the crawl space.
How many times did it happen with like Frank Reynolds or Walter Cronkite or David Brinkley where they go, oh, I accidentally hit the button that takes us off the air?
See, no, this is how far we've come. They couldn't trust Walter Cronkite with a button. He just goes stabbing at the thing because, the IQ of a small field mouse, whereas we have an array of exotic equipment before us and control all the buttons ourselves. And I think the results speak for themselves.
And pretty much any one of those buttons can take us offline.
Oh yeah. I did it last week. I reached over for my coffee mug and I hit the space bar on my keyboard instead, and I stopped the video. Like, oh.
And the space bar, of course, is where Bill hangs out in the off hours. So we're going to talk about this week's episodes of Right Angle. I've got a couple of ideas, and one of them is not related to any specific news story, but I've been seeing a lot of news stories lately because I think a member of Congress has submitted a bill to pay reparations to the descendants of African American slaves. And I don't know if it's like limited to African American slaves, but those were the vast majority of them. And of course, immediately the people on the right start talking about all the reasons why that's a bad idea. We had nothing to do with it. Why should our tax dollars now go to paying for the sins of the past? It won't really solve anything. How could you possibly determine who's entitled to the payments? I mean, there are a lot of reasons why not to do this, but it seems to me that all of those reasons lack the emotional punch of the original suggestion, which is to pay reparations to the descendants of American slaves.
Did we not talk about this a little while ago?
I feel like we might have.
I think we talked about the topic, but my topic this time is actually a little different. I don't want to just talk about the morality of reparations, which is why I threw all that out there immediately and said, let's not discuss these things. What I want to ask is there something that Republicans or conservatives could propose that would perhaps counter this narrative and have the emotional impact and the political value, so to speak, and frankly, the genuine ethical value that the Democrats seem to think they have with this reparations push. It just seems like it's one of those situations where conservatives are basically saying conserve, 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 which means don't do anything. And Democrats are saying, look at those stodgy old conservatives. They don't want to even do anything to atone for America's greatest sin. So really, the thrust of this episode would be, is there anything we can do to deal with this issue, especially because the suggestion is that there are lingering effects of American slavery that are still besetting the African American community, and we're not willing to do anything about it.
Sure, I got an answer for that. Save for the show.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so that's my one proposition or preposition. NPR had a story about Arthur Laffer, because Laffer is going to be receiving a presidential medal. He's getting the, let's see, I want to get the medal right, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
I don't imagine he would have gotten that under Barack Obama.
No, probably not. And the whole article, of course, as you would imagine on NPR, is about this great economist and why he is being recognized by the President of the United States for this advance in economics. No, I kid. It's actually about how the Laffer curve was laughable, and they don't use that term, but I'm using it. The idea that lowering the tax rate would increase the tax revenue to the extent that it would more than overcome the drain on the federal treasury that lowering the tax rate ostensibly had. It's never worked. Didn't work for Reagan. Doesn't work now. And they're not saying he doesn't deserve the Presidential Medal of Freedom. They're basically just bringing to bear witnesses like President Reagan's former Office of Management and Budget chief, David Stockman, another Reagan administration official, Bruce Bartlett. Nobody believes this. No Republican economists believe this.
Okay, well, I guess it's just the other 320 million idiots who are out there working harder and making more money now because the taxes were cut. I guess they didn't get the memo that it didn't work. This reminds me perfectly of that great saying about progressives, and that is, yeah, sure, it works in practice, but is it going to work in theory? And when you hear things like this, I just had this image come to mind. It's like they said it's ridiculous. It's like it doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense. Whether or not it works, that's a separate issue, but it makes perfect sense. There's no trouble understanding a smaller piece of a larger pie unless you have a cognitive disorder. And so when I heard this, my first thought was, some people you just got to treat like a little puppy. You got to grab them by the collar and rub their noses in it, and say, bad progressive, bad, and put them on the newspaper, and then see if over time you can change this insane behavior. I just don't understand it.
Well, and they're not saying that it's just a bad theory. They're saying that it has not worked in practice.
They're out of their minds.
So, and I imagine Stephen will have some thoughts on that as well as we dig into it.
I do, most of which have to do with people misunderstanding, whether on purpose or just because they're stupid, what Arthur Laffer actually said and what his curve demonstrates.
Good to know.
Please don't let me forget this, but I honestly maintain, the thought just occurred to me, that Interstate 10 running from Santa Monica right through Houston ought to be named the Laffer Federal Highway, the Laffer Memorial Highway. It's Interstate 10. It runs from California to Texas, and it is one-way street essentially, and it is all the evidence you could possibly need that this guy is not only right but brilliantly right.
And I think that Mr. Laffer would appreciate it if you didn't refer to it as the Memorial Highway yet.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Laffer. I'm a huge fan.
So, in case you're watching this, Mr. Laffer, not from the great beyond. Okay, so Stephen Green, those are my two topics, by the way, and we can do either one. We can call either one whatever we want to call it. I tend to think that our members would be really into this idea of what if Arthur Laffer was wrong, and the reason why he's getting the Medal of Freedom. So.
It'll be fun. So
yes.
I have to talk now, don't I? I want to, pardon me, I want to talk about knitting bots. These remarkable new AI bots that will knit, except that's not what I want to talk about. This is a stupid euphemism I had to come up with. Yesterday, because I'm going to be writing this column for PJ Media tomorrow, I wrote a column on Tuesday about knitting bots. These are the bots that people get not for knitting but for personal pleasure. But we can't say the thing that they actually are.
Knitting is the euphemism?
I wanted to come up with something just absolutely ridiculous that could not...
Oh, you invented this.
I did. That could not get demonetized. Because what I found out is I put this column up, and there's nothing prurient about the thing that I wrote whatsoever.
Yes.
Not talking about how people knit or the way in which bots will help people knit and any of that stuff. No, this was talk about the way knitting bots might benefit society, the way they might harm society,
and the horrifying. Have you mentioned the horrifying consequences of dropping a stitch?
You know what? I haven't, but we can get into
genius.
that.
This is genius. It's genius.
Here's what happened. I put the column up because I'm an editor. I don't have to go through somebody else to publish something that I've written. And Paula Boyard, our managing editor, gets back to me and says, "We have a problem. You can't talk about knitting bots without Google's algorithm, their ad-selling algorithm, demonetizing you.
It already became a prurient title?
They will flag you as spam for talking about...
Did you come up with that term?
Knitting bot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was looking for the stupidest, most harmless thing possible to say instead of the other thing, which I don't want to say on this video because I don't want YouTube to demonetize another one of our things.
Maybe Knitting Machine would get away with it.
Knitting Machine, that might work too. But the point of this
is
just
the word bot is doing it?
No. The word that the actual word instead of knitting before bot.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see. Yes.
Yes. You know, these pleasurable robots. There we go. Yes. That's as close as I'm going to come to actually saying the shortened word.
So in your post, though, did you use
it's right there in the headline. I called it the knitting bot devolution. And we're talking about...
But you didn't use the word that you would think Google would have a trouble with. You used the actual word knitting.
No. I used the real word.
Okay.
And this is when Paula, our managing editor, gets back to me and says, we have to take the ads off of this column. It's generating great traffic. Couple 300 comments last time I checked, all the rest. And yet the company I work for won't make a dime off of this because Google has decided that some websites aren't allowed to talk about this. The New York Times can run a story about various bots and plaster all the Google ads they want on there. A right-leaning site cannot because it will get flagged as spam, and suddenly your big money-making column that's generating all this traffic actually generates $0 in revenue. How about that? And the thing is, it's a really fascinating topic. You talk about, I need another euphemism here, houses of pleasure that bring in unwilling actual people to do the knitting. And if robots
textile mills,
yes, if robots can eliminate the demand for that, you're talking about a reduction in human trafficking. This is a good thing. On the other hand, we're in a situation where fertility rates are declining because the dating scene sucks because of all of these awful social trends. And now here's another excuse for people not to be dating and starting families and all the rest. And so it's a fascinating topic that people on the right are not allowed to talk about without losing their paychecks.
You know, I always wondered why Grandma blushed when she talked about her quilting bee.
And now you know their dirty little secret. Wait, can I say dirty without getting demonetized?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. We get demonetized anyway.
Yeah, you don't. It just seems like YouTube has a full-time person just standing by waiting for us to post a video.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? So now I've learned that there are fascinating topics which I dare not touch because it costs my company money. How about that?
So just to be clear, because I'm very thick in the skull, the actual word knitting did not appear in
nowhere
your blog
in my
post.
column.
Okay,
no.
Thank you. But it's going to be here. You're just protecting me, really, is what you're doing.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's what I do. I'm a giver, Scott. You should know that by now.
Because you know what's going to happen when I run for president is this will be the episode that they pull out and they go, see what kind of guy he was?
Talking about knitting all day long. Right. So, maybe we need to talk about what topics we're not allowed to talk about. I mean,
I know. I like knitting bots. I think it's really interesting. The other one would take us hours.
Yeah.
Indeed.
This one shouldn't last that long.
Well, I hope not. We try and keep these under 45 minutes.
Okay, so that's Stephen Green's show topic, which I suspect will be on a lot of the DIY websites. Because
it'll be all over Pinterest. Oh, that's another thing. Did you hear about Pinterest? I think it was LifeSet, one of the pro-life activist organizations, is banned from Pinterest because they too got flagged as porn.
Really? Because they're showing stuff that in the birth canal or what? I don't.
You locked up.
Yeah, you locked up for. Yep. No, there was actually. I'll have to dig this up after this segment, but before we record mine, some whistleblower there said, well, they flagged you as porn because they're all pro-choice and they don't want pro-lifers on Pinterest.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, any technical difficulties that my video feed may be having here may not necessarily be involved in my local recording here. We can talk about this on camera here with this show.
Yeah.
So you guys, for example, during that while Steve was talking, you locked up on my screen for like 2 minutes. and then I was just I was just about to hang up on you and redial when all of a sudden it kicked back in. So that's what one gets for using a 6-year-old iMac to do the show. So Bill Whittle, speaking of a 6-year-old, Bill, you also get to host. I have to have a segue of some sort at every point here.
I don't see why. No reason to start now.
So, speaking of unrelated things, Bill, what do you think?
Well, you were talking about the guy at YouTube who sits around waiting for us to post a video so he can demonetize it. Drudge has a headline about that guy, about the guy who sits around and waits for our video to be demonetized. It's a pretty horrific story. It's about Facebook. It's about the guys who are moderators on Facebook. Nervous breakdowns, suicides, being treated like a sweatshop animals, just appalling living conditions. And that in itself is very interesting because I think people really need to know that this kind of like baby blue Facebook, we're the coolest guys in the world and we just love everybody so much. They're just a bloody machine. If this had been Ford Motor Company, the left would have shut them down.
So there's some sort of sweatshop nanny farm at Facebook, basically?
I have to double check the article. I think they use a company I don't know whether it's wholly owned or not, but I think there's like a company between Facebook and the person who's actually being, brutalized. But basically, they say the whole thing is like a high school locker room, people yelling and screaming about who's dating who, smells like a locker room, place is filthy and loud. And just as one example, one woman started feeling really sick at her desk, and her manager, out of a fit of compassion, came over and brought her a waste paper basket for her to vomit in, so she didn't have to lose any time on the job.
Yeah.
But the thing I got out of it...
Did he come back and pick it up after she was done, though?
I don't know.
That's love.
But the one thing that I was most struck by, and this is kind of where I want to go with this, is that, just to take one example, there's a guy who flagged a video about these 3 kids in Florida who had captured an iguana. They're everywhere on Key Biscayne. Big iguana, a couple feet long, and just bashed it to death against the concrete. And they had to keep that on. That was allowed to stay for reasons that are not clear to me. But
science.
This guy had to see this thing. He had to see it again and again and again and again and again. And they're talking about things like, cats having their faces chopped off with hatchets and just all of these acts of insane cruelty, insane, horrible cruelty, especially to animals. And the part that I find tough about this is bashing an iguana to death gets to stay on Facebook, but if you talk about the Korean War, you get flagged. And I don't...
Or knitting.
I'd like to say I don't get it, but I obviously do get it. I did a speaking engagement yesterday, and I said, I really think that the culture war is over and we win, because as this philosophy of victimhood spires ever deeper into absurdity, more and more people are simply just shaking their heads and saying, they're just snapping out of it. They have to. There's no place left to go. It's just like this is the world that these companies have made, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. From the bottom of my heart, there's a picture in the article of 2 women who are Facebook moderators. But I wouldn't say that they were exactly representative of the entire United States of America in terms of, where they're coming from politically. And the arrogance of it, the arrogance of these, of guys like, I think Zuckerberg's a psychopath, I do. And
sociopath
anyway,
for sure.
Okay, so anyway, anything that we can do to throw, I was going to say throw mud, but what I really meant to say was throw some light on what these gleaming clean tech centers with their baristas on staff and their beanbag chairs and their ping pong tables and their slides and all that. No, it is a horror.
They're making billions by encouraging people to just absolutely bring out and share the absolute worst in humanity. And I'm enough of a libertarian that I don't want a legal solution, but I'm reaching the point, or maybe I have reached the point, where any person of conscience that runs one of these companies should just absolutely shut it down.
Speaking of which, this article says that 3 people who were sourced for this article violated their non-disclosure agreements and are facing some real legal issues, but they felt so strongly about it, they felt they just couldn't go on anymore.
Yeah, web hosting is cheap enough. If you want to put up a video of some horrible thing, you find a web host that'll charge you a few bucks so that you can do that and leave the rest of us alone. And I'll do the same on my website for the host that I pay a few bucks a month to. But this idea of people getting their jollies because they can share some hideous animal abuse.
And it's not just that. I don't know how
sick.
many.
I'm just sick.
I don't know how many emergencies I've seen in the last 10 years where either somebody's had a heart attack, somebody's fighting, somebody's hit by a car, and that person is lying on the street bleeding, surrounded by a crowd of people holding up their phones, so that they can get the big, get the big likes for it.
Ugh.
So the point of the episode is that social media has these screeners, or that people are posting horrible things.
The point of the episode is that Facebook is not the happiest place on earth, the way they like to portray themselves, but also to say that if this stuff is either being allowed on or taking such a toll on the screeners, maybe they shouldn't spend so much time watching videos to see if somebody has a political agreement or disagreement with them. Maybe they should be spending more time on the part about skinning animals alive and putting that up on your Facebook page. Maybe that would be appropriate use of a censor in terms of this thing. But certainly that doesn't seem to be where the focus is. And so really what I'm saying is the things we talk about on Facebook, the things we talk about on Right Angle, are more offensive to Facebook than people bashing living animals to death.
Yeah, and their big concern is, are you violating somebody's copyright? I have to check this little checkbox that says I'm not violating anybody's copyright. There should be like a second checkbox that says not bashing an iguana on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Check there.
Not going to hell as a result of this video.
Okay, so Steve, so I don't have to do this after the show. What was your topic again?
Knitting bots.
Knitting, that's right.
Yes. The actual subject is the things we're not allowed to talk about without losing our paychecks from a third party. My employer can say, you're wearing the uniform, you're writing for the masthead, whatever. You can't say that on my dime. But when it's a third party essentially telling me what I can or cannot write because they won't allow me to earn a paycheck.
It's the paper boy deciding not to distribute the newspapers because he didn't like the cover story.
Exactly. Yeah. Or cutting the stories out that he doesn't want you to read.
Okay. Got that. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it. We covered everything, right? We did my two,
Sweet.
Steve's, Bill's. Is there anybody else that's part of this group?
No, I would.
My
kids
like are still asleep at 9 in the morning, and I'm a little jealous.
Bill would like.
I would like to say
the privilege of the floor.
Seriously, honestly, we had an enormous rush of members. Not only am I grateful to see so many people step up and come to our assistance, but also not to reflect on the people who are already there, but the quality of the comments of the people coming in, just the optimism and the sense of community and hearing from people who said, basically I've been persecuted everywhere I go, and this feels like family, and I know Scott and Steve and I are we're not only very grateful for the support, but we're actually just kind of proud to have you on board as friends. The people who come here and the people who comment on these things are the salt of the earth, and it becomes more and more clear every day. We hope all of you will take up that offer on that remarkable idea that Scott had, and continue to post blogs on the BillWhittle.com site. I read most of them. Scott reads all of them, and
me too.
Yeah,
most of them anyway.
Absolutely. So your voices count, and we really are glad you're here.
You know what makes this feel more like family than just anything else? It's a pair of things that it's wonderful. The one is members coming together and first insisting every once in a while, you've got to release this members-only content to the wider public. You've got to do it. And then it just becoming almost unanimous consent week after week. Please just make the members-only available to everybody. But then you combine that with the fact that there also seems to be a universal agreement of, but you know what? The Backstage, that's just for us. I love that. That's warming.
I thought the reason that this stuff feels more like a family is because I'm always under the impression that my Aunt Marty is running the engineering board.
And I was not aware we had an engineering board. So that
most people were not aware that I had an Aunt Marty. So
that's legit.
So once again, your daily diet of news is included at no additional charge.
Good to know.
I was trying to help somebody who was having trouble accessing the website, and it was a member. And eventually we figured out that there was a typo in an email address. When it originally was set up, they just had a typo in their email address. And so we were able to solve that. But this is not the first time this happened. I've had several other people who did the same thing. They basically said, well, it's okay if I can get to most of the videos on YouTube right now. And the important thing is you got my money, right? And that it is helping to fund this effort. Isn't that awesome?
That is.
It is awesome.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we got your money, and this is what we did with it.
And you have our most sincere apologies
from the bottom of my heart.
But our fundamental philosophy, all three of us, when you get right down to it, our core philosophy is no refunds. That's our philosophy, and we live and die by it.
Actually, I had somebody email me yesterday, and I was afraid to approach you, Mr. Whittle, and I didn't even want to talk to your secretary, who usually screens out people who want to talk to you. But basically, he said he hadn't been on the new website yet, and he had signed up just before we set up the new website for an annual membership. So he was basically saying, it sounded like he was kind of annoyed by the fact that he would have to sign up again, and I can understand the annoyance. Sure. And it was like, so you want me to pay more for this or whatever? And I told him, I said, we can extend your new membership by the months to cover the old one. We can refund you the fee for your old membership. In fact, you tell me what you think is fair to do, and we'll do that. And so I haven't heard back from him yet, but I know Bill was being facetious about the no refunds thing. But it's, we love our members here at BillWhittle.com.
That's right. And absolutely.
And
I've always felt. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scotty.
I was going to say. I mean, when people lose jobs, when people get diagnoses that have the ring of doom to them, you'll find that the members and the staff at BillWhittle.com are here for you, and we're just grateful that it matters so much to you that you reach out to us to apologize for the fact that you lost your job, and So anyway, it's a great family. We're glad you're a part of it, and we hope to be able to continue to do this for a long time to come, and we can't do it without you. So for Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.